But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then saith he to his disciples, the harvest is truly plenteous. Notice that word, plenteous. But the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he send forth laborers into his harvest field. Jesus said this is harvest time. He said, in fact, the harvest is plenteous. The religious crowds attempting to kill him, they take him to a hillside ready to cast him over. The thieves and the robbers have taken over the temple. I hear Jesus saying, woe to Chorazin, Bethsaida, woe to Tyre, Sidon, woe to Capernaum. Woe, woe, woe. And yet Jesus says it's a time for harvest. No evidence whatsoever in the land that there's a turning to God. No spiritual awakening in sight anywhere. What evidence do we see in America or in the world today that it's harvest time? Do you see evidence of the United States or any nation repenting? I see Europe going totally away from God. Secular society. Many will fall away, the scripture says, because of an increase of sin. The love of many will grow cold. False prophets will deceive many. And these prophecies are happening before our very eyes as I stand in this pulpit this morning. If the Lord of the harvest describes the harvest as being ready in the darkest of times, you better believe it. He said, get your eyes off the conditions. I'm telling you, the harvest is ready. The darker the generation, the whiter the harvest. The darker the times, the more open people will become to the gospel. Remember, God told Israel, your time has come. It's harvest time for you. Deliverance is coming. But first there came 9 national calamities. Weather changes. Unpredictable, unprecedented, natural disasters. And even that did not shake them. There had to be one final calamity that everybody in Egypt, from Pharaoh and every citizen of that nation, could not say, this is nature out of control. This is the hand of God. But just before that dark night, Israel was prepared and ready, and the harvest began. There's coming a time when what happens, every man on the face of the earth will say, this is not nature out of control. This is God. Why there are so few laborers, and what the laborers are going to have to go through to be approved. How we appear before the world. A true laborer is a Christian whose walk proves that Christ is enough. That Christ is all sufficient. The laborer is the instrument that God uses. We become the instrument. Now, in the days of Christ, the harvesting instrument was called a scythe. It was a long, curved, single-edged blade with a long, curved handle. And that curved blade on the scythe had to be hammered out on an anvil. And he kept hammering. He put it back and forth into the fire and bring it out and hammer it on that anvil. And then when he got it in shape, the curved blade, one side of it, the inside has to have an edge. It has to be sharp to cut down the harvest. And then he would take a rough edge thing called a file. And he would file and file. This explains why there are so few laborers. I can't become an instrument for the harvest until he has made me capable. God knew what we would face in this generation. He knew we would face, this generation would face exotic temptations that no other generation has known. And He can't send just anybody out into that kind of atmosphere. There has to be preparation. There has to be a blade that's gone into the fire and shaped and filed in and out of the fire and placed on the anvil, and that hammer keeps coming down. Not because God's trying to drive out sin, but because God says, here's one that will take it. Here's one that I can use. And the fire has come. And some of you are in that fire right now. You've been hammered and hammered and hammered. And you've been in the fire, one fire after another. And you feel the rough edges. Why? Because God said, I have only a few who are going to be ready. for this harvest, and they have to experience. They have to go through these fires that others are going through so that they can comfort others. Paul the Apostle, yes, he says, the devil hindered me, but read the next verse. He said, I rejoice with a crown of rejoicing. I'm saying it's a time to shout when you're in the fire, because God is making you a laborer. God is doing something. He needs ordinary Christians who've been in the fire, who've been hammered and hammered and hammered. Is Jesus enough in your life? I mean, is He everything? Have you proven that in the hardest time, Jesus says, quit limping around, strengthen your knees, and get up? Oh, let me see your voice, your countenance. Let me see your beauty, and let me hear your voice.